Are you looking for ideas to use up your 12 by 12 paper? Hi, I'm Jess from JessCrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies and time. So let's get making. Today I have a template for 12 by 12 paper that makes 6 cards from one piece without leaving any scraps. I try to limit myself with how many cards I make with a single sheet of paper because if you're anything like me, you can buy paper way faster than you can use it, even with all the no scrap templates. So this is template number 13. That means there's 12 more templates already available on JessCrafts.com. This is the Play All Day Boy collection from Opaque Paper. This collection I think is perfect for young kids of any gender because I know plenty of kiddos who, boy or girl, love all things with wheels, and that is a big component of this collection. So I thought, since I donate so many cards that are to organizations that serve children, this was going to be a really awesome collection for me to use. Now, this particular sketch asks you to cut squares on the diagonal, and then you're going to take those squares and rotate them so their flat edge is along the side of the card. And that means that all of these papers, you're going to be really mixing up the orientation of the design on the paper. And ideally, I would like a paper whose orientation is not directional, i.e. not clearly top and bottom. And kind of even beyond that, because this one, this actually has a clear top and bottom. There's an example. This one doesn't necessarily have a top or bottom because some of them, some of the little connecting bricks, Legos here, are actually facing downwards and some are facing upwards. So this isn't particularly directional. However, on the back are these cut-aparts. So I have to sacrifice the cut-aparts for this design, and then I won't have two sides to choose from. So it's going to be a little bit challenging. Ultimately, I chose this one with the helicopters, and I'm actually going to use this for all of this side with the shooting stars for the triangles and use the helicopter for the small 2x3 piece because I think that even cut to 2x3, there's actually a fair amount of white space, which actually really is blue in this particular background, but I think it will actually work for an area to put a sentiment and image. So we're going to follow the sketch. The sketch tells us that we need to, I always cut off this bottom piece first to make it to that true 12 by 12 size. Then we need a bunch of 3-inch rows, and we're going to cut them in a few different ways. So I'll bring it to 9 inches. So I have 3 now, 3 inches by 12 inches. I'll keep doing that until I've cut up my entire piece of paper. And then this sketch tells me that these 3 by 12s are going to get cut into squares and then on diagonals, and one of them is going to be cut into 3 by 2 inch pieces. So now I'm going to cut 2 inches off of the end continuously. This, I find, saves me some time versus taking this long piece of paper and bringing it to the 2-inch mark every single time. Instead, I just shift it down 2 inches. I find that my measurements are actually, it works out a little better because you don't have the weight of the paper hanging off the edge of your guillotine trimmer. If you don't have a guillotine trimmer like this, it might be less of a concern. A more traditional paper trimmer is a little bit flatter to your desk. And so that's where my focal point is going to be. I'm going to be putting a sentiment or an image or whatever on this piece, and I think there's enough white space, i.e. the blue with the lines, that the helicopters won't be so distracting. So enough non-patterned space, I guess. I don't know the best way to explain that, but that's why I'm doing that. Okay, now I need to cut some 3-inch squares. So again, 9, 6, 3, and I always, when you're in school and they're like, oh, what are we going to use this math for? I'm always surprised how much I use all the different little things that you do in math on paper crafting of all things. I did not think my hobby was going to be where it all came in, but sure enough it is. So now you see here, I'm going to be turning these papers onto the flat edges to go around the card. And so yeah, these helicopters, some of them are taking like deep dives down and steep climbs up, and that's why I decided to instead go with the star side. Because the helicopters would look fine. I totally think you could do those, but you know, it is a little bit of an odd thing. And it will depend on how you cut your helicopter paper, because I'm just gonna pick a random corner to a random corner because my pattern doesn't particularly matter. But if you had picked a very particular pattern, you might wanna stop for a second and think about how you're cutting it and how that's going to, because the flat sides are going on the edge. So, you know, that's again causing me to have a completely upside down helicopter here. So this paper may not be well suited. But here, like this time, now they're actually all right side up. So if I did that, and I switched them, now both my helicopters are actually, they don't look too bad now, you know? And all that's gonna be needed to take it into account. I don't wanna deal with that. So I'm using the star side. The sketch does not call for mats for these triangle pieces because, as you can see in the sketch and when you work it out, this long side is the exact width of a card. And so there's not really any room for a mat around it. If you want something to make this pop off the paper a bit more, because like this, I have white paper here, this is a good instance for using colored cardstock for your cards, especially if you, for whatever reason, have a surplus of any particular color, like, you know, you have a ton of red cardstock because you never use it, although that is the exact opposite problem that I have. I'm having trouble with my red cardstock. There used to be like a red pack of 110 pound from Michaels that I like to use, and I have not found it. It's not available online, and so I'm gonna be sourcing a new place for my red cardstock. But also there's so many different colors of red to me. Like there's, you know, the sort of more like bright traditional Christmassy sort of red, and then there's all of those reds that have a little bit of orange and a little bit of pink, or even, you know, that get into the possibly pink or orange. I don't know. There's just saying red cardstock can get you so many different things. You have to be, and it's so hard to buy cardstock online because of that, because you don't know exactly what color it's all going to be. So it's always just a little bit of experiment and to find out like which is the red color that you use the most too. Like, do you like an orangey red or whatever? So I am using liquid glue to glue all of these pieces down. This isn't necessarily my go-to because usually I find it faster to take my Scotch ATG and just put tape on the back of all of these pieces, especially when I'm mass producing, because I mean, making 6 cards, I guess it's not like a lot, but it's enough. And anyway, so when I'm trying to work on a bunch of cards at once, it can be really nice to just kind of put adhesive on all of them, lay them out all over my desk, and then pop them all down real quick. But in this case, I actually really do want that little bit of wiggle room that liquid glue gives you, because I am trying to figure out how to, you know, to center these side ones and have everything kind of, you won't see this middle, but meet up together in the middle to mean that their sides meet up, that kind of thing. So in this particular case, liquid glue is helpful. I have this glue stand from Make It by Marco that keeps the glue right down there in the center, sorry, at the bottom, so that when I am ready to use it, it starts flowing immediately. Now, of course, if you're just using it all in one quick craft session, it doesn't usually start flowing to the bottom in between gluing pieces, but in between craft sessions, I like to remember to put my glue bottle back on that stand. So once I have all of these ready to go, I can move on to the next layer of my card, but I will often kind of work in stages. So what I like to do is, so I don't lose any of the pieces in the middle of a project like this, if I'm stopping my craft session or if I want to move my crafting somewhere else, I'll take all of my pieces, my sketch, my card bases, etc., and place them in a pouch like this. I know a lot of you have picked these up off of Amazon and have found them helpful as well. I read somewhere recently that the top 2 favorite colors of kids are blue and red. And so that kind of inspired me to pick red today to contrast with my blue paper here. Even though I mentioned having a hard time and running out of reds. This is just like one of those random pieces of red that I have collected over the years. And so I don't even know like what brand it is, but I have like a little pile of those, and that's kind of what I'm down to at this point until I find my next favorite red cardstock. So I'm cutting these to 2 1/4 inch strips, which is actually what I think not quite what I wanted to do, because then it's 2 1/4 by 3 1/4. So 3 1/4 doubled is 6 1/2, and then 3 1/4. I need to get 6 of these out of 1 piece of cardstock. This is creating kind of a big scrap, so it may have been better to cut it 3 1/4 and then do 2 1/4. I don't know, because that wouldn't have worked out very well on 8 1/2 either. Sometimes you just gotta accept there's gonna be scraps, and that's okay, especially cardstock scraps. I always have a use for cardstock scraps. As you know, I like to make my crafty foam tape, like instead of doing buying foam tape, I like to just glue layers together. So what I would do is I have these 2 big scraps. You can use, my liquid glue is at hand, so I'm gonna do that. Actually, liquid glue is a pretty good candidate for this because you do really want some nice coverage as you're gonna cut it into chunks later. And if you were to just like put some stripes of dry glue around it, you might later on cut it such that your pieces aren't sticking together anymore. So anyway, place those 2 together. This is my Barely Art glue. I've never really seen any warping with it, so it's great for this purpose. It'll give me 2 nice flat pieces, and then I can put this in my little, I have a little bin, and I'll pull it out when I need some foam tape. Because I don't have a lot of red cardstock, maybe I won't keep doing that, just so that maybe I'll have a good use for those scraps. Okay, 1 more 2 1/4. I need 6 of these. And those are all the cardstock mats I will need, which is why I could know confidently that I could get it all out of 1 sheet of 8 1/2 by 11 paper. And it was a perfect time to use one of those random ones I collected that doesn't match anything else. Because that's the challenge, is a one-off paper is fine until you need a bunch of pieces to match. And that's what happens to me often when I am making large batches of cards. I want all the cardstock to match, and so those one-off cardstocks aren't as useful. This is how I would assembly line glue things. So I put out all of these pieces. I only have 5 here instead of fully 6, because I always like to save one and I post it on Instagram Reels. So if you ever wished my card tutorials were 30 seconds instead of 15 minutes, then go check them out on Instagram Reels. I'll make the card super, super fast and like 5 times speediness. But I don't share any tips or tricks. It's always just over music. And this way, as you see here, now I can just pop all of these very quickly onto it without having to worry about the glue drying or spreading all over my desk or sticking anywhere. Now that I have those pieces matted, they are ready to go in the center of the cards and cover up that little bit of a jumbled mess there. And I want to take a quick second to say thank you to those of you who have clicked that thanks button that is down below the videos. And that's where you can leave just a little bit of, I guess you could think of it as like a tip. But instead of charging for my templates, I make them all available because I want any crafter, regardless of their level, income, etc., to have access. So I'm going to try to keep them free as long as possible, but I appreciate all the things you guys do to support me. So when you use my affiliate links, it means a lot. When you click that super thanks button and give a few bucks, it really is very meaningful to me. So I have these stickers that came in the collection pack. There's a couple of sentiments kind of on there, but they're definitely a little bit more scrapbooky. And then I actually have the coordinating stamp set. This isn't something I would typically buy, but I liked some of the images. I could see myself using the trucks and trains and rocket ships over and over again as I make cards for kids. Also, that Lego piece is kind of unique, or connecting brick, because it's not officially Lego. But okay, so there's not a ton of star/helicopter stickers though. and I need sentiment. So I think I might move over to, well, I want to use the Think Big, Dream Big. And if I put just that sentiment down, and I can't stamp it directly on here, I think that will take up a pretty good chunk of this space, and maybe I don't need any extra embellishment, but I'm gonna need to stamp this on something. So I'm gonna need to either pull in another piece of cardstock, which is great because there's so many different colors in this collection, I'm not gonna have any problem finding another color of cardstock to make my focus. I decided to go with the Shoot for the Stars sentiment to tie in the star paper in the background. But then I could not decide whether I like the oval or the circle sentiment better. So I did 3 and 3. Since this template makes 6 cards, I decided that I would do 3 in the circle and 3 in the oval, and then I could ask you guys which one you preferred. I kind of like the oval because it is like the same kind of long shape as the rectangle that is the background. And then I like the circle because I feel like it leaves more of the helicopter pattern paper showing. So that's kind of why I couldn't decide. Those are like the 2 thoughts that I had there. I took a little bit of yellow Copic marker, but like literally any kind of marker would work for something like this. I just wanted to add a little bit of color to those stars because to me, them being blank like that, it's okay, but it just kind of, it called to me to say, you know, this is a chance to add a little bit more interest without necessarily adding anything, you know, any more expense or supplies or whatever. So, if you found this video inspiring, here's another video where you can find more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with a share to your crafty community. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template tutorial, and check the video description for product links. See you in the next video.